Greetings, mortals. I'm Key, and I assume you want to know how to make cool backdrops for your D&D fights, like the one in the thumbnail. Well, first thing I need to tell you to do is buy Dungeon Painter Studio on Steam. It's £10.99 sterling or $14.99 USD for those of you across the pond. The software has become practically mandatory for me now, for all of my D&D campaigns, and the whole reason I wanted to make this video is to highlight its qualities and its ease of use. For those of you who already have DPS or some similar software, I hope by watching you'll at least pick up some useful tips for your encounter maps that will make your players go wow. Now, before we start anything, I need you to go to the Steam Workshop and grab a few mods. In particular, we want the FA series by Strixon. These are the ones I basically use the most, and I absolutely recommend them. They are fantastic assets, and they cover pretty much all your bases. As you'll see later, I have a lot of mods subscribed to. I don't use most of them. I don't recommend you have too many, but the FA series are the ones I would absolutely recommend. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get into it. Okay, so first off, you'll be met with a blank screen like this. We have plenty of room. Here's your first lesson. Do not use all of this. As I'll tell you later in the video, bigger is not always better. For reference, one of these little squares here, that will be about 5 feet if you're playing D&D or most tabletop games, just for scale of reference. So most maps we make will probably be like around about that size, maybe. That's fairly big. Maybe about medium size, I reckon. Anything bigger than that, you're looking at a huge room or outside. Alright, for the purposes of this video, I think we'll make something simple. Let's start with a cave. A nice simple cave. You can use caves for a lot of things in D&D. A troll's den, or a cultist lair. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I have a lot of mods installed. The reason I say don't install too many is because it will make your Dungeon Painter Studio a bit slower to load up. However, there are a lot of great mods on the Steam Workshop, so I highly recommend looking through the ones and picking out the ones you want. However, for this video, I'll be using the FA series pack. Alright, for a cave, first thing we want to start off with is a basis. Let's say that big. Alright, nothing fancy. Not too big, not too small. So I imagine the entrance to the cave might be somewhere down here. Your players will come through. And then if you want to have a continuing system of caves, maybe an exit up here, or a crossroads, or this could just be a dead end. Let's say it's a dead end. Alright. So what I'm doing here is swapping from the floor to objects. You can use walls as well, however, objects will give you what you want. We're going to start from outside going inwards. So let's see. Depending on what assets you try to load up, it will take longer or shorter. These aren't too crazy, so it shouldn't take too long. Basically, the more detail the asset has, the longer it'll take to load up. Alright, let's say the entrance starts down here, so... use custom angle. However, we're going to use the grids. So... let's say it starts here. Okay, while I'm doing this, I thought I might briefly mention, I'm not really thinking about this too much. Don't overthink your placements, otherwise you'll take ages to do it. You want to save yourself time. Basically all I'm doing here is just picking something at random from the bottom and just going with it. Which is probably the best thing, because cave systems are random. And you'll take ages if you think about every single tiny placement. Don't worry about the edges, these will be blacked out, the players will never see them. Okay. Now we have a nice little basis to start from. This is the size of the room. Again, nothing too crazy, nice and simple. We have like a little cubby hole here for maybe some sort of monster to hide in while your players are adventuring. Who knows? Basically what I'm going to do now is undo that. Fill in all these gaps. And then I'm going to tell you to do something in a minute. That'll be very useful. Just get all these. And done. There we go. Alright. What's that? To save yourself a lot of headache, you want to group these up and make sure they're at the top, because you want nothing to go over them. Okay, and this will save you a lot of space up here on the your timeline on the right. Is that the right word for it? Timeline? Your library. We'll call it that. And you want to do the same thing for the edges of the walls. It saves yourself so much space. You see how messy it was before? Now it's all clean. So basically we only have 3 assets now, because we grouped them all together. Alright. Now that's out of the way, let's fill the room up with some stuff. So what have we got to work with? Let's put some pillars in. Now, you can call these pillars, or you can call them stalagmites, or stalactites, it's up to you. But basically, the players won't be able to go through them, and they'll block line of sight. These pillars will say that they go from top to bottom. I highly recommend you fill up your maps with stuff for your players to interact with, or obstacles for your players to try to avoid, or go around, or use to their advantage. Makes your maps a bit more interesting, rather than just a flat open canvas. Now we can have a flat open canvas. If you want like an open battle in the middle of a field, that might be a good idea. But for this cave, we're gonna have some obstacles. So let's do random angle, and we'll take off snap to grid. Make it bigger or smaller. Let's have a fairly big one. And let's put it at the back here. So my train of thought is basically, I imagine this cave is full of, let's say, goblins. And goblins are sneaky little buggers, and they all use dirty tactics. So one thing I imagine them doing is using these pillars for cover, and to wait for the players to get close and ambush them. Let's have one more. Just a small one. Right there. Just because. Alright. And that's out of the way. Gonna make sure your library is in order, so snap them together and group. There we go. Good, good. Alright. So if you've downloaded the FA series, you'll need to go through them to get the ones you want. So unfortunately the Caves pack doesn't have any rocks in it, but I want some rocks for my cave. Now, because I've used it so much, I know that there are some good rocks in the forest pack. These ones. These grey rocks are what I use for my caves typically, just to keep things nice and consistent. Let's put some rocks at the entrance of the cave. So if the players come through here, they might possibly be able to use these rocks for cover if they get ambushed. So we're going to put one there. Let's see. Let's make this a small one. Just above against the wall. Again, not really thinking about it too much. If it looks nice and random and chaotic, that's what we want. Because it's not a structure. It's a random cave. It's natural. I also recommend, if you're outside, in the fields, in a forest, in a cave, you go to the forest pack here, pick up these tiny rock assets, especially the first one, and we're going to basically cover the whole room with these, just to make it a bit more stony. Before I do that, remember to snap and group. There we go. And we're going to litter them fairly close to the bottom of the line. And we're just going to dump a bunch, kind of randomly. Okay, let's just put a bunch here. If you hit random angle for anything you're putting down, and you up and increase and decrease the scale, it'll twist them around like that. So it needs to be a bit smaller. So you can use the same asset over and over again and just randomize the angle. There we go. I think that's enough. And we're going to reorganize our library. And group. Alright, not looking bad so far. Not done yet though. Something else I want to teach you about making maps, how I do things, is this cave now has some stuff in it. Granted, it's not very interesting, it's just rocks and pillars. However, it's looking very flat. And what I mean by flat is it's just a flat plane. It's one dimension. There's no 3D verticality. The players could probably jump on these rocks for a bit of height advantage, maybe. That's about it. But we can do a bit better than that. If you go to the FA Cliffs pack, which is right here. Here we go. So I imagine somewhere in here there might be a higher plane. Some elevation. Let's pick the back here, the cubby hole. So you got 3 varieties of these. Basically got your medium size, your ridge, your small size, and your cliffs, your big size. I don't want this to be too big, so let's go with the medium. Let's say this is 5 feet up. So your players will have to climb on top of them if they want to get up. Yeah, that'll do. Let's start with this one. Right here. And the reason why we have our walls and pillars at the top is so the edge of this cliff will not be seen. So it looks like it's part of the formation and not, you know, slapped on top of it like that. Pretty basic stuff. Okay. And we literally just dump these on top of each other because they look so seamless. You can't tell they're 2 different objects. And let's go with this one. And we're going to do the same. Actually, we're gonna flip this. There you go. That's better. So we could have maybe... we put it right here. Twist a little bit around. Maybe have a ridge up here for someone to bounce across. Like that. You know, might never be used. But you never know. And then we want a tail end like this to show that it's gone down to ground level again. Alright, and as always, snap and group. There we go. Not looking too bad so far. You can play around with some of these packs. There are some cool, neat things you could put in. For example, we just take a look. What's in dungeons? Wrong thing. We could add some bushes. These are a bit too bright for me. So what if we do... nope. You know what? Yeah, let's add some man-made objects in here. Let's say these goblins have been stealing from the local town. And just put some barrels at the top here. Random angle. Making some variations of color. Just to make it a bit more visually interesting. And let's just put one on its side. Like that. Why are there barrels here? I don't know. Goblins stole them. Or someone else was in here. Maybe bandits used this as a getaway cave to hide stolen goods. For practical reasons, this can be used as cover for your monsters. And your players might want to check them out if they win the fight afterwards. See if there's any loot in there. There might be, who knows. And let's just put a few crates here as well, because why not? So again, not really thinking about it too much. Just randomize the scale, some are bigger than others. There we go. And group. Alright. Not too bad. A good rule of thumb is, as I said with open spaces before, it's alright to have one big open space just for some general fighting and shooting, but then some closed spaces around the edges. Just have some variety. So if your players get up to this point and all the monsters are in this point, this will be a chaotic closed space fighting ring. And I imagine a lot of shenanigans could get cooking. Or it might turn into a big open fight. Who knows? But if you have any rogues in your party, they might want to use the cover for sneak attack, and your monsters might want to use them as well. So it's a good idea to have a nice variety. Alright. I think we might call that a map. Except for a few things I want to show you. Over here we have Effects tab. And what we want to do with these crates is use them for shadows. So you can do short shadows, which is barely noticeable. Medium shadows. Or long shadows. Typically I only reserve long shadows for big objects like these pillars. For small objects like these crates, I think we'll do medium. And then you can edit them. Change the angle around. Increase the distance, which I think we'll do a little bit. And let's say the shadows go this way. If you're worried about consistency, don't. Because after we apply these middle shadows now, anything you put with them, let's say these barrels, apply, it will save your settings. So I had the shadows point this way, away from the cave entrance, because let's say the light's coming through here. The barrels will now do the same, as long as you use the same shadows. Alright, again, let's use these pillars. We can give them the same shadows, or we can give them long shadows, which I think I will. And we're going to do the same thing. So that way. We can increase the distance a little bit. There we go. Alright, not bad. And let's do the rocks as well. Let's give them medium. So it's barely noticeable, but it makes your maps stand out a bit more. Again, less flat, which is what we want. Depending on the location, if you're outside, shadows might be more important. But a good rule of thumb is just to put shadows on anything, no matter what map it is. Even if it doesn't really make too much sense because there's no sun. Last thing we want to do is go back to the floor layer and one other mod list I recommend you getting is the Tops collection for one thing and one thing only. Now, this is kind of a dank interior location, so something cool we can do, just to make it a bit more gritty, is get the dirt layer, snap to grid, go from top to bottom, and stick it at the top of the library. There, now it's even more dingy. To show you the difference. There we go. Now it has a more dank, moody, gloomy, musty appeal, which we can control with the opacity layer. I think I'll keep that 100%. Okay. That's basically it. I highly recommend you go through the FA pack just to see if you can add anything like this with objects. Maybe there are some dead bodies on the ground, who knows? Do vampires live here? Or if you can find some plants, which I can't do on the fly, but there are many things here. I know for a fact that there are some glowing mushrooms on one of these that might be useful. That's basically it. Okay guys, before I end the video, there's something else optional I'd like to show you. If you download the Effects Pack, literally just called Effects Pack from Steam Workshop, in addition to everything else we've downloaded, and go to Overlay Unsorted Lots, you scroll all the way to the right, You'll see there are a bunch of things you can work with. We want to use the clouds assets. And basically, I want to make a different version of this same map, but with a weather effect. So let's keep it to a random angle, increase the size, and we want to put it on top of everything. Okay, so I'll skip ahead and do this. Okay. And remember to group. And we can lower opacity. If you want it really foggy, you can lay on thick, 100%. Or if you just want a very subtle, moody, atmospheric weather effect. You can do this with rain, you can do it with fog, or snow, perhaps, as long as you have the asset for it. And that's basically it. I just wanted to slip that in near the end. Alright everyone, we reached the end of the video. I hope you found it useful in some way. Hopefully you got some ideas for your D&D games. And if you want any more D&D videos from me, I have a few ideas in mind I might do for the future. But let me know in the comments if you have any ideas for me. With that out of the way, be gone. Alright guys, that's about it. I hope you guys found something useful for your